All right, beginning the in-vehicle and engine start. First thing you want to do is buckle yourself in your safety belt and begin the safe start of the truck. You would tell them that the truck is in park and safe to start, and start the truck. All right, now with the engine running, we're looking at the first item to check, and that is the hydraulic brake check. To do this, you're going to pump the brake 3 times, hold for 5 seconds, and confirm that pressure doesn't release, showing hydraulic pressure in the system. So I'm going to do that. 1, 2, 3 pumps on the brake pedal, holding for 5 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I felt no release of pressure, so my hydraulic brake check passes. Okay. Next is the parking brake and trailer brake. The parking brake is located on the left side. I'm going to push this in with my foot. So that goes all the way down to the floor. And with this applied, you will see the parking brake indicator light shine up on the dashboard. Test the parking brake by putting yourself in drive. You're going to press the gas, accelerator, and confirming the parking brake is holding and working properly. Go back to park. Release the parking brake by releasing the handle by hand, and you will see the indicator light shut off. Now, the trailer's parking brake, you would do this with this electric assist handle. This is pulled to the left like this. So you put yourself in drive, pull this to the left, engaging the trailer's brake, press the gas to pull against the trailer's brake, and we feel the parking of the trailer's brake holding. And this, you say, is also testing the coupling of the truck to trailer as it pulls the hitch and coupling components. Back to park. And now moving on to the next item, service brake. That is your regular foot pedal brake. So you do this by putting yourself in drive, confirming your wheel is straight. You're going to roll forward and apply the service brake. So rolling and applying, and saying that the service brakes work properly without as well any pulling either side, as you would feel the truck working properly. The brake system applies evenly. So back to park. And now moving on. So lighting indicators, you're going to want to test the indicators for the dashboard, as well as explaining that there's no warning lights or indicators that you would not want to see, preventing safe driving. So looking at the dashboard, I would let them know there's no check engine or ABS system lights on or any other warning system lights. Then go ahead and confirm that your indicators for four-way flasher both light up and work, confirming the left signal and right signal, both indicators work, and as well the high beam, the blue light for high beam indicator works. All right, moving on. Your emergency equipment. There are going to be 3 items that you need to find in the cab for your emergency items. The first is a pack of spare fuses that are in the cab and unused and ready to use. You have in the back a box of 3 triangles, 3 DOT triangles, explaining they are not cracked or dirty and not missing, all in the box. And then the last item is the fire extinguisher, explaining that it is mounted secure to the floor, not allowed to move around. The needle is in the green, fully charged, and there's also a pin, and that prevents it being discharged by accident. Okay, moving on. We have the windshield and traffic monitoring devices. The windshield, explained, is clean and not covered or cracked by any obstruction. It's properly sealed and secured. The traffic monitoring devices for this vehicle are just mirrors, explaining all my mirrors around me are adjusted to me to drive safely, and I have all mirrors clean and not covered or cracked. If the mirrors need to be adjusted, this is the proper time to do it. Okay, wiper and washer. Test this by pulling the tab down on the top of the signal stock. This will get your washer working and wiper at the same time. Explaining, my washer fluid evenly applies the fluid properly, and the blade properly cleans without streaking, as noticed any cracking or dry rot in the blade. Next is the heater and defroster. We will need to test the airflow and temperature of heat. So explaining, as you put this to this selector for top and bottom, turn the fan to high and turn the heat selector temperature. With your hand, point out that your defroster is working on the top and floor fan is working on the bottom, and the heat in the cab is felt as well. And then change the temperature comfortably for your test. All right, next we have the horn. Simply toot your center horn and confirming the horn works. That will conclude your in-cab pre-trip, and following next with the all external lights outside. All right, beginning. All right, next on the list, we're going to check the operations check of all external lights. To do this, you're going to want to check your left signal, your right signal, your four-way flashers, the high beam, the low beam, all of the running lights, and the brake lights. The brake lights your examiner will assist you with, but all the other lights you're going to want to walk around and fully check them all the way 360 around the vehicle. So I'm going to turn on my left signal. And now looking at the front of the truck, I have the left signal working. I have the left signal on and working. I have the taillight signal working. And I have the trailer's tail signal working. Right. Now, I will turn on right turn signal with maybe the low beam. All right. Now at this time I'm confirming that I have low beams and the running lights in front of the truck all on and working. I also have right turn signal on and working. I have a right turn signal on and working on the mirror. I have the right turn signal on and working, and the tail lights are both working. The running light is working for the trailer. Running light is working, and I have the right turn signal on and working. Now very low, you're going to have to see this. The tail light is on and working for the trailer running lights as well. On this side, I have running lights working for the trailer. The license plate light, considered a running light, is on and working. I have the running light working, running lights, and now I'm going to check the four-way flashers and the high beam. All right, so I have the high beams working, and I have the two four-way flashers on the front working. I have the four-way flasher on the mirror working. I see both of the four-way flashers working for the truck tail. And I see the four-way flashers for both of the trailer's tail working. and I see my mirror four-way flasher working as well. And at this point, I would ask my examiner to assist me with the brake lights and by giving me a thumbs up. And go. So with finishing my light operations, I'm now going to turn the tires all the way to the left, shut off all power for lights, and shut off the truck's engine. All right. All right. After all external lights, we're looking at the lenses for the front of the vehicle, explaining that all the housing for the lights are securely mounted. The lenses aren't cracked or covered or dirty. They're clean and clear. Also say that they are the proper color, amber and clear, and everything is mounted, secured properly, nothing's loose. At this point, you're going to need to open your engine hood. The tab right here will open that. And the tab right here is pulled to the side, hood open. Okay. So with the next item, fluid levels, there are 5 fluids to check. You have your automatic transmission fluid, you have your coolant, you have your engine oil, you have the power steering, and you have your brake fluid. I would work from this side, from passenger to driver side. So the first of these, finding the transmission fluid here. This is the only level you would say check while running. So tell them while engine running, I would take this out, clean it, the dipstick, reinsert it, pull it out again, and then check its level between its minimum and max line, explaining if it's low, it would be added here simply with a funnel, and then it would be rechecked. The coolant is here, telling them it would be between its minimum and max line when the engine off, and below, if needing, it would be added right here. The engine oil here is checked similar to process of the transmission. This is taken out, cleaned, reinserted, pulled out again, and then read between minimum and max line, confirming where its level is. If it's low, it would be added, it would show here, and then rechecked. The power steering is here. This cap is taken out to find the dipstick inside. It's between the minimum and max line, but low and needing the fluid, you would say it would be added right here where the cap is. The brake fluid is here. This level, you would say between minimum and max line, and needing that fluid low, it would be added here. Okay. Now, moving on, we have fluid and air leaks. We only have the fluid leaks mainly to address, not any air component really. So this is when you would talk about any leaking of the engine area entirely. So explaining the condition of hoses, the condition of reservoirs, the potential risk of leaking anywhere around. So telling them that all reservoirs of the engine area are noticed any leaking, where their fitted clamps and hoses are secured. We're looking for any caps of any of the reservoirs that could be loose or missing or leaking. Maybe the seals are cracked. Telling them that we're looking under the engine area to make sure that there's no puddles that are pooling or dripping from the engine as well as the transmission. And there's not any hoses that are showing abrasions, cracking or bulging, needing to be replaced. There's no smells of burning rubber or burning fluids on the engine as well. Okay? So after you have steering system, the steering system is comprised of the steering shaft that's coming from a steering column. That will connect to the steering box that is directly below the power steering reservoir, and out the side of the box with the tire turned out is showing the tie rod's connection, telling them that the tie rod is checked for any crack or bend. All nuts and bolts are secured, nothing's loose, and all the joints are properly greased. The box is mounted secured to the frame, and it is not leaking. There's no loose hoses or any cracks. The steering shaft isn't cracked or bent, and it has no excessive play that could be measured either at the shaft at a 10-degree rotation or 2 inches max play on the steering wheel itself. All right, moving on to the tires. So the tires tread have 4 30-seconds of depth or more. All the tread is evenly worn with no uneven wear or flat spots, and the steer tires are virgin tread and not recapped like the drives could be. The sidewall of a tire should see no abrasions, cracks, or bulging. There's no dry rot and properly sealed to the rim with no leaking. The tire valve stem is where inflation is checked, and the spec you would explain is on the tire itself, and then the cap is put back on and not missing its cap. Next you have the rim. Identify, telling them that the rim or wheel is mounted secured to the tire with no leak of air or cracked or bent flange. The rim is not warped or illegally welded, and secured to hub with no looseness where bored out holes in the rim could be found, or oblong holes you could say. The lug nuts are all here, not missing or loose. We're looking for any cracks or loose lug nuts. Maybe there would be shiny metal or shiny threading as well. Next, you have the suspension. Now, the only suspension component on this list to find for this truck is the shocks. So identify your shock, explaining that this shock is mounted secured top and bottom to frame and axle. There's no loose bolts or nuts that mount. There's no cracked or dry rotted bushings. The shock is not leaking or cracked or bent. It is secure mounted. The next item is the brake lines and hoses. The line is considered the ABS line, and the hose is the hydraulic line. So you're going to find the hydraulic line here, and you have your ABS line right here. The ABS line is checked for any exposed or corroded wires, as it should be connected and properly insulated. There's no chance to see this rubbing or tangled on anything. The hydraulic line is checked for any leaks of fluid. It's fitted and tight secured, and there's no abrasions, cracks, or bulging, and not rubbing or tangled on anything. Lastly, in this section, you would show the brake contaminants on the brake rotor and the brake pads. So identify this right in the front, identifying the rotor and the pads inside the caliper, explaining that both of these items should be noticing any contaminants of either grease and oil, rock, gravel, or dirt. So anything that could slip, and nothing to prevent proper smoothly braking. All right, that will conclude this section. We are at side of vehicle. At this point, leave the hood open because you further have the batteries to check. So the lenses and reflectors for the side of the truck are similar to the front, explaining that all lenses would be clean, clear, nothing covered or cracked. They're properly mounted and maintaining colors amber and towards the rear red. Next is the traffic monitoring devices, and for this truck, remember that is just your mirrors. Explain that all the mirrors are mounted secured to the truck. We're looking for any cracked or bent housing, and the mirrors are clean, not covered or cracked, secured, mounted. Next, you would identify your batteries in the engine compartment, you have two batteries for this vehicle. One is identified here and the other here. Explain both of the batteries are checked for any leaking or bulging. They need to be checked, mounted, secured properly, and the connection of cables are as well secured and not loose or corroded. All batteries and connections are secure. Moving on, this time you can close your hood. And we are at the fuel tank. This truck does not have a DEF system, so only identify your fuel. For the diesel, open your cover and find your cap to explain this is not either loose or missing or leaking. We're checking the seal inside the cap that could be cracked or dry rotted, and the tassel or chain properly connects or anchors it to the truck. The fuel tank under the truck, identify here that this tank is checked for any leaking that could happen on the ground or from the hoses connection. All the tank straps are properly mounting it to the frame, and those straps are not cracked or loose, and there's properly sealed around cap, or the seals to the strap to frame are not loose or missing. All right, moving on to frame. So the truck frame, identifying the outer running length and the inner running width or cross members. To explain, all structural member of frame are straight, not twisting or warping. There's no cracks or illegal welds. There's also no rust holes or loose nuts and bolts. You also want to explain that the truck bed is secured to the frame, where any mounting brackets would be noticed crack, bent, rusted through. There's no loose nuts. Also point out that the bed of the truck, that the flooring has no holes or any risk that something could fall through. Okay, that concludes this section. Now on to the coupling. Moving on to the coupling of the truck and trailer. It says air and electric connection. You will only worry about the electric, not air. So showing the connection of electric, explaining that the plug is secure, connected to the receiver and mount, that the mount isn't loose, mounted to the truck. This latch holding this in is properly spring loaded. You see no corrosion or bare wires. Following the cable line, that this has slack for turns, but not enough where it's touching or dragging on the ground. Looking for cuts and abrasions in that line. And following this, importantly, to the trailer side, that this connection is as well secured for the same issues. Proper loaded spring and connection with no exposed or loose wires. This line also follows underneath, that nothing is dragging or tangled on anything. Next on the list, we have the pintle hook, and that is identified here. So the pintle hook, explained, is secure, mounted to the truck side receiver, that there's no loose nuts and bolts. The pintle hook has no crack or bend. The bottom part of this has no wearing thin metal or it cracked here. And the receiver is secured, the hitch to receiver, that there's no missing pins or keys. Next on the list, we have the drawbar ring, and that is here of the trailer to pintle hook. So the ring itself is checked for any wearing thin metal, the ring cracked or bent. It's mounted secured to the tongue with no loose nuts or bolts, and it is secured in the pintle hook. Next, you have the tongue. Identifying the tongue or the A-frame in front of the trailer, that the tongue is checked for any warping or cracking. There's no broken welds, loose nuts and bolts, and secured to the frame and the truck. Next, you have the locking, explaining how you're checking that the pintle hook is locking and securing, as well as any safety devices. So the pintle hook on the top part has a hitch release lever that is checked to be in the locked and down position, with its pin not missing, and securing the pin to the truck. The safety devices for this vehicle, there are two. You have the safety chains, and as well you have the breakaway cable. The safety chains are checked to the truck side with the hooks in their facing position, not away from us. The chains are checked to be crossed and not bound up or wound up. They have enough slack for turns, but not touching or dragging on the ground. And they are followed to the trailer side to be secure connected. The breakaway cable here is connected to the truck's receiver. It's followed under the truck, to make sure that it's not tangled or rubbing on anything. Important to be having slack for turns as well, but not dragging on the ground. And following that to the trailer receiver for this, that the pin for this is fully seated and secured in this. It's not coming out or loose. There's no corroded or bare wires to the electrical. And following this into the tongue storage area where you find a battery that needs to be checking the battery charge that is between 12 and 14 amps, showing that the battery is fully charged for the breakaway system to work properly. That will conclude that section of the coupling. Now moving on to the trailer itself, the first item is the landing gear. Checking the landing gear to be, importantly, in its upright drive position and mounted secured to the trailer's tongue. There's not any loose nuts or bolts, broken or cracked welds. The hydraulic system is important not to be leaking any hoses, and test it to work properly, making sure that it goes up and down properly. Now moving on to clearance, explain that you're aware of clearance, having proper enough clearance between truck and trailer to move properly, where nothing would hit each other and nothing was dragging on the ground. The reflective tape for the trailer is important to maintain DOT grade of tape, not obstructed, torn or peeling, all clean and clear down the side and around the trailer. Working down the last item, you have lenses and reflectors for the rear of the trailer. This is similar to anywhere else that you've talked about this, where all lenses are checked to be clean, clear, nothing covered or cracked. But this time explaining that rear face, all the lenses are going to be their proper red color. And all the tape explaining, again, the same DOT tape is used, not torn, peeling, or covered. Looking at the list carefully, you would confirm then that your pre-trip is concluded.